I don't think Millie nor we were prepared for all that fuss. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Thank
now,
you.
You may wonder where we would possibly find a lovely audience like this morning. They actually were a tour here at the White House, and they have graciously agreed to spend this hour with us.
Just
along
yesterday.
With Mrs. Bush. Yeah. Anyway, nice to have you with us, and thank you for that welcome. We are in the East Room.
That's
the
right.
The world-famous East Room. Tell us a little bit about
A lot
it.
of history here.
Well, there's a lot of history in this room. This is a room where 7 presidents have laid in state after they died. We've had 7 weddings in this room, which is very exciting.
A prom.
A prom.
A prom here.
And President Roosevelt had sumo wrestlers.
Wrestlers in here?
And the Harlem Globetrotters were in this room, and they wrapped these beautiful chandeliers.
Oh, good.
But this is a room where we have lectures, presidential lectures. We have
They
a
sign
lot of
bills in the East Room
excitement.
as
They
well.
sign bills in this room, absolutely. It's just a great room.
It certainly is.
You don't watch television in this room, do you?
No, we do not.
Have you been
That's
watching a little
upstairs.
lately?
No.
Did you
didn't
see
watch
the
last
debates
night?
last night?
I saw the debates, and I
Oh.
thought our vice president was just as good as the president was
Real
2 nights
competitive,
before.
wasn't he?
Is that difficult for you watching the debates? Not only your husband, but also
Well, I
Vice
thought they
President
did
Quayle?
so well. I just
Do you
felt
bite
great
your
about them.
fingernails?
No, no, because I know they're right. So don't-
Good. Well, being First Lady, this is quite a responsibility to be the First Lady.
Really, I didn't think so.
Oh, yeah.
Now you're telling me.
Uh-oh. Now you'll
Uh-oh.
get nervous
Now I'll
after
get
4
nervous.
years. What is your favorite part of being First Lady?
Well, of course, George Bush. My second favorite part. You know, in this house, the best of everything comes through. The best actors, the best musicians.
Best television show.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
The best doctors, the best volunteers. If you don't like living in this house, you got to screw loose.
Is there anything that you like the least? Is it maybe a lack of privacy, maybe sometimes, or?
No, because I can go upstairs and be all alone. And no, it's just, I like it. I have never wasted my time thinking about what I don't like.
Now, in a campaign year, I don't think you spend much time here, do you?
No, I'm leaving right after this to go
Where are
to
you off
Detroit.
to Detroit?
Going to go on a bus tour with a daughter-in-law and a granddaughter and a sister-in-law.
There has been so much attention given to the women in the campaign this year.
Too bad, too, because we got 2 men who are very different, and you got 2 choices, and I think you really ought to be focusing in on what you want. Do you want more taxes, more spending, or do you want stable government with less interference in your life and less taxes? I mean, it's that big a choice this year.
You know, on the home show, we deal with so many issues to do with the home and with women's issues, women's health issues
Now,
as
what
well.
are women's issues? Let's go over that. Aren't they the economy and peace? Aren't they?
They
And
also-
health care and...
Yes,
And,
But why do the men have so much difficulty getting that message out, and yet you
absolutely.
you have
An
such
80%
alacrity of
popularity.
your ability to get the message across. Your approval rating is so high.
Well, that's
People
because I don't have to make any decisions.
Well, I don't know.
I love dogs
I've heard this
and
said.
little people.
I've heard this said that if there's anybody out there on the fence who are a little bit ambivalent about this election, that they might just think twice before they vote you out of the White House.
Well, baloney.
Huh? No, but even
don't
the
believe that.
Smithsonian has turned around. They used to have an exhibit in there of first ladies in their party dresses. And now what they've done, they've taken the first ladies' party dresses and they've added to it what the first ladies did with their influence and what they did with their political
You think
clout.
I get credit for that?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Oh, yes,
No.
you do.
I
Yes,
can't
you
take
do.
credit for that. But
you
I
have
do
taken some
think
issues.
that the White House gives you an opportunity to really try to do something positive. And I have focused enormously on education and literacy because all the things I worry about and all the things George Bush worries about, poverty, hunger, AIDS, teenage pregnancy, environment, everything would be better off if more people could read, write, and comprehend.
Absolutely. We'll certainly be talking about that a little later on. But what happens when you and perhaps the White House differ on something? I mean,
We don't.
we don't at all.
No, if we do just like good parents do and good married people do. We talk about it
Upstairs. Have you ever tried to influence the president one way or the other about an issue that really
I don't think
you felt so strongly
Well, if
about?
I feel strongly, I tell him, but I don't try to influence him because George is one of those people who listens to everybody, does not react to a crisis, but acts and does what he thinks is best. I have never known him to have a mean or evil or I almost want to say political thought. He doesn't do things because of politics. He does them because he thinks they're right for the country.
Well, we'll take a pause, if you don't
All right.
mind, and a couple commercial messages, and we'll be back, and we'll be taking a tour of the White House. We're back live from the White House with First Lady Barbara Bush and, of course, Millie there at her feet. Now, gosh, imagine 1 million people traipsing through your house every year. Well, when you live in this house, it's not surprising because everyone wants a chance to feel the history in every room. You really have to become a student of the White House when you move in here, don't you?
Well, sort of. I'm a student of upstairs more than downstairs, but because a lot of history took place up there, I wish we could take, well, we have on television before, taken people upstairs.
All right, well, today we're going to take a look at the inside with a tour guide that you just don't get to see every day, Barbara Bush. So let's take a look.
Well, there we are at the North Portico. That's where the heads of state would arrive with great drama. Now we're
President
inside,
Reagan's portrait.
President Reagan's portrait. All the latest presidents are there, as you know.
This is where we walked in this morning.
That's right, and the Marine Band would be on the right normally. Well, there they are. Now, this is something I'm proud of. Those are the fourth grade school children coming, and they're being trumpeted into the White House, and it's very exciting.
That must be so
And
impressive.
now they're in the East Room, and they're being shown how the president will sign a bill. It was in this room Yeltsin signed, and George signed the START Treaty.
Right.
Here we are in the Green Room. This is the room that Thomas Jefferson used as a dining room, and he had an oval table so there would be no protocol. Nobody sat at the end. And Willie Lincoln lay and stayed at this room. Mrs. Lincoln never went back in again.
I've never heard him referred to as Willie Lincoln.
I think that was his name. And this beautiful silver coffee urn belonged to John and Abigail Adams and was returned to the White House maybe 5 generations later by another John
They were the
Quincy
first
Adams.
inhabitants of the White
That's
House.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. This lovely fireplace is French, and it was in the state dining room and moved here. And over it, of course, you see Mr.
Benjamin Franklin.
Benjamin Franklin, painted in England. Now, he is one of the few portraits that's not presidential in the White House.
That looks like Washington there, and
Well, this is showing that in this room, I received the wives of heads of state, and this is Mrs. Hawke from Australia, I believe. And here we are in the Blue Room. The Blue Room is the room all presidents receive foreign diplomats and their credentials. This room has been a wedding, many weddings have been held in this room, including President Grover Cleveland.
not much you do with the decor, and it's called the Blue Room.
No, now this room, I have many receptions. That was the National Rehabilitation Hospital. Julio Iglesias, if you were very quick, you would have seen him. This is upstairs. This is the yellow oval room upstairs with the Truman balcony off of it. And here is the Queen's bedroom, which is a beautiful room. Now we're downstairs
Yeah, this
again
is the
in the
red
red room. Here they say Lincoln had seances. I just believe it must
With
have
that
been
wallpaper,
Mrs.
maybe.
Lincoln.
Why the red room, though?
Well, the red room, because Mrs. Nixon chose that color from a
Okay.
painting.
Yeah, what are we looking at?
And this is a very famous inlaid marble top table. And look, I came to the White House early.
Oh, my gosh. Good for you.
This is the
Steely Gray.
this is the state
Yeah.
dining room, and a lot of great things happen here. We have, as you know, I think,
Upstairs,
there's Boris
Mr. Yeltsin
Yeltsin.
himself.
We sit at round tables,
Yeah.
and
Now, do you still have the dinner, and then afterwards you generally have a concert where
That's
people
right,
are also
that's
invited?
right.
So there's several hundred people at these events,
well, 120.
at the dinner.
Yes, and I think they want me to tell you about the Yeltsin dinner where he leaned over
Yes.
to me and said, through an interpreter, Barbara, what do I do if a woman has her foot on my foot? So I looked over at the lady next to him and was going to tell him, oh, I don't really know, when he lifted his leg and mine shot up.
It was yours.
It was mine. And he said,
Must have thought, what a strange American custom.
Oh, he said, in Russia, that means the woman loves you. I said, it does not mean that in America, Boris. And the next night, Gary, it was the cutest thing you ever knew. I asked him to sign my menu, and when we had it interpreted, he had written, Dear Barbara, remember, it was you who stepped on my foot. You knew what it meant. I feel the same way, Boris. Pretty cute.
That is great.
He has a great sense of
Well,
humor.
I must say, what a time here in the White House to witness that and to be a part of that
Well, the
historic
Stork
event between
Treaty
Russia and
was
America.
signed
Yeah.
the next day. That's what was important about that.
All right, now let's continue the tour with a look at the ground floor.
All right. This is the China room, and almost every president China is represented there, maybe personal or the China they ordered. This is George Washington's China, and this is Rutherford Hayes China. It's the worst looking China you ever saw.
Now, do they keep all of the services?
Well, this is Nancy Reagan's China.
Right.
And no, they don't
They
keep
don't.
them all. They used to throw
Put
them
in
away
museums,
and
yeah.
give them museums.
Right.
Today, they keep everything.
There's Mrs. Reagan.
Now, this is the downstairs hall and the portraits of first ladies
Rosa
there.
Carter.
These are very pretty portraits, I think. Very pretty.
Who's the artist?
Well, this one was Heard, and this is Heard.
Yeah.
And
Great portrait.
this is
Lady
Madame Shumatov painted Lady Bird. And Jackie was painted by
Wasn't it Jackie that said, gee, if I were married to Jefferson, he'd know what to do about the decor in the White House?
Well, she did. It was very clever of her. This is her garden.
Uh-huh.
This is a beautiful
you have
garden,
your
First
own-
Lady's garden.
Your
And
own
this is
garden,
the
don't you?
children's garden. No, I don't have one.
mean,
Mrs.
the-
Johnson put this in. I have my garden in. This is my granddaughter, Ashley.
The heck with this garden stuff.
And she's having,
how
Mrs.
sweet.
Johnson started a children's garden with hand and footprints, and this is my baby. And now I love this one because on the same stone we put our twins, Jenna and Barbara Bush. So there they are.
Look at him.
You can tell they were 6 then.
Well, there are 18 or so acres around here, but I meant the Pennsylvania side of the house is kind of the front, and the back is sort of private for you and
South
your
grounds
husband. 'Cause I know
are
I've seen
ours.
you walking the dog out there. Yeah. Now, thank you for the tour very much. Now, regardless of what happens come November.
No, we're going to win. So
All right. But
Don't pause on that.
all right. But I'm sure at one time or other, where, you know, as you go, and regardless of the polls, there's always a thought, what am I going to miss most if I do have to leave at some
No,
point?
no, I'm not gonna
All right, let's
leave.
say 4 years from now.
4
4
years from
what are
now,
you
I'm
gonna
going to
most?
miss, and I heard George say this too after I had said it, so I know we both feel independently. I'm going to miss the people. The house is great, but so what? We've lived in 27
Neighbors are
houses.
everything, right?
No, it's the people who live in this house. It's the only house in the world where I have never felt friction of any kind.
Well,
It's the
that's a
only
tribute to
house
you.
in the world. No, they never talk about former presidents. That you feel safe in this house. You feel surrounded by love.
Well, that's the way
Both
we feel
George
today.
and I feel
And
that
thank
way.
you for that.
No, it's true.
Next up, your parenting problems are going to be solved because
Oh.
Mrs. Bush is joining Club Mom at the White House.
Club Mom. Today we're coming to you live from the White House. Let's meet our expert moms who are ready to help perhaps solve or give you some ideas on some of your parenting problems. And I'll introduce myself first. My name is Sarah Purcell McClintock. I'm a mother of 2. I'm married to Sandy, a dentist, and my little ones are 3.5 and 13.5.
I'm Ellen Walls. I am married to Michael Walls. We have 2 children, Michael, who is 10, and Ashley, who is 7.
I'm Lisa Credos. I work full-time. Gary and I have 2 children. Megan just turned 2, and Ryan is 5 months old.
Hi, I'm Joyce Travers. My husband David and I have 2 sons. David is 5 and Dustin is 2.
Hi, I'm Barbara Bush. I'm a housewife. I work full-time. I have 5 children. They are 80, 70, 60, I don't know.
No. 5 children and 12 grandchildren. And the youngest of which we just saw, little
That's
Ashley.
Oh,
Well, our first question here is from Susan, who lives in Rye, New York, and Rye is your hometown.
That's right.
Oh.
Well, let's see here. She says, my husband and I are divorced. Although we want what's best for our kids, we fight all of the time. What can we do?
I think the answer is right in the question. They want what's best for the kids.
Right.
So what they need to do is maybe take the argument outside of the home. If they cannot agree or if they can't talk without arguing, go to a restaurant, go to a park, go anywhere, but get out of the house and not fight in front of the kids.
Certainly
Yeah.
shouldn't fight.
I think they should
Right.
maybe grow up a little bit and realize
They are the parents.
that they are the
They need to
parents.
remember that.
demonstrate
that
They are
to
the
the children.
adults. They have to be the mature ones. Absolutely.
So if you have a disagreement or whatever, do it in private, and when you're around the children, for heaven's sakes,
Well, if you're
take a deep
divorced,
breath.
you're not there a lot, so certainly you
It's
can
probably
control
during
yourself.
this switch over
I know,
and
but they
visitation.
can certainly.
But they have to
Think of the
remember
children.
that's right, they're
They're
the
the
adults,
adults,
and
not
that is their
children,
role
yeah.
to take care of those children.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. Good luck to you. Next is Allison from Chicago, Illinois. My children and I live in a very bad neighborhood. The reality is they live with danger every day of their lives. How do I help them feel safe in an unsafe world?
I think the answer is to empower your children with self-confidence and self-esteem, get them involved in outside activities, and I think as a parent, you need to stay involved in your child's life, maybe at the risk of pushing back some of your goals and your ambitions to save the time to be with your child. Our children are our future, and you know, you'll have your life maybe a little bit later, but they're much more important than we give them credit for, I think.
You chose to have them, they didn't
That's
choose.
right.
That's right.
But, is the mother a working mother? How do we know?
Well,
I mean, advice probably goes differently. If
Yeah,
it's a working
but I
mother,
think- but I
she's
think-
Walking out of school sometimes.
But you know what?
I still need
But
to
I still
empower
think
them.
every child has the right to grow up in feeling safe.
So do I.
I think every child deserves that right, and a parent needs to say to a child, I'm going to protect you, I'm going to take care of you. And they also need to caution them that it is, you know, it is a tough
How
world out
about,
there.
I think that's right too, but how about getting other parents involved so that all of them can feel their
I think
children
that's a great
safer?
suggestion.
I mean, go to your school.
Especially in your
and
neighborhood.
your neighborhood, but go and let's, a lot of good citizens committees are really
yes,
taking
you need
care
to be
of.
active.
Yeah.
It's very
You need to be
important, I
active.
think.
That's true.
And help them all keep an eye out for each other's
I mean, if
children.
she's not married and if she's got
Yeah.
a job, there are 10 other things, but if there are other people like her who feel the same way, why don't they get together and do something about it?
Yeah, make a difference.
That's an excellent idea. Very good.
You surprised?
You know what? No.
That's great.
Okay, next from Frostburg, Maryland, Katie asked this question. With the holidays coming, I'm already feeling the pressure of not being able to give my kids what they really want. We just can't afford it. What can we do?
Well, I think that maybe, first of all, they need to let the children know the truth in life, that in life you cannot always have what you want. So therefore,
But I
maybe
also
they
think
need
for
to
little
sit down.
kids, you know, Christmas or the holidays are so important. I would, when they're an age where they would understand, I take them to a children's hospital
Or
or to
homeless shelter.
yeah, and let them
something.
see the kids are a lot worse off than they are. Maybe if they took one of their toys and donated it, maybe they would realize giving is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
them
And it does
participate
make you
in
feel the
making
best.
Yeah.
But in everyday life, you face those, not just Christmas.
That's
or-
true.
Right.
And maybe if they're taught, they can get everything they want all the way along. I
Then they
mean,
expect it.
That's right. They
you
do
can
expect
remember
it.
your mother saying to you, it's just because the Joneses have it.
It doesn't grow on trees.
Right.
Or work for it, or let me help you work for it, or...
And you know
that's a good-
something else? No child, no matter how affluent the family, should have everything they want.
Absolutely. That's
right.
The minute you do that, you're taking away all their incentive and all their desire to perhaps earn it themselves.
Because we are preparing our children for the future, and by letting them know that in life you don't always get everything that you want, I think that's an excellent way of preparing them for the
a good
future.
lesson.
You have to instill values in them now when
Or
they're
work
little.
for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let them
Work for it.
let them work for it. That's the best part, because it makes them feel so excited
And good about themselves.
Well, thanks.
It's just one day.
Exactly. This too shall pass. Thanks, Ellen. Thanks, Joyce and Lisa and Mrs. Bush.
You mean that's it?
That's
We've
it.
solved all
We've
the
solved all of them. Next, Mrs. Bush helps kids and moms learn to read.
can be someone who will one day follow in my footsteps and preside over the White House as the president's spouse. And I wish him well.
With that pride at the White House, the First Lady Barbara Bush. And of course, one of Mrs. Bush's big concerns is family literacy. And in March of 1989, your foundation, the Barbara Bush Foundation for Family Literacy, was begun. Why the big interest in literacy?
Well, because everything I worry about would be better if more people could
Stems
read
from the
and write.
literacy.
Absolutely. I mean, everything. There's just not a problem we have in this world that wouldn't be better if more people could read, write, and comprehend.
Well, with that in mind, the foundation works for family literacy programs all around the country. And recently, Mrs. Bush visited a program in Denver, Colorado, and our home show cameras were there to watch. Take a look.
Were they?
Did you ever see llamas eating their pajamas?
These young moms are not only teaching their children to read, they're enrolled in a special program that helps them help themselves. They're earning their high school equivalency degrees through Denver's Adult Learning Source Family Literacy Program.
Rhyme, Down by the Bay. Ain't that a nice book? You know, it's important to my kids, and that's the first thing. And it's important to me because it makes me feel good, and I accomplished something, you know. And if I can accomplish getting my GED, I can accomplish anything.
The program teaches parents that family literacy begins at home and offers planned learning activities.
I'd only came here for like 2 or 3 days, and they were telling us that they read to the kids and stuff. And so I went and got a library card just for Ryan. We do our nighttime reading, and he looks forward to it. You know, if I forget, he reminds me. It's like, book, Mom.
I would like to introduce to you our First Lady, Mrs. Barbara Bush.
Last week, the First Lady helped the Adult Learning Source celebrate its 3rd birthday. Earlier this year, the Barbara Bush Foundation awarded grant money to ALS for continued development of a family literacy model.
Is this a horse?
Yes.
No. Is that a leaf?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, it'll be something I'll remember for life. I mean, I'll be able to tell Ryan and his kids, you know, in 1992, I actually met the First Lady and shook her hand, and, you know, it's a big deal for me. You know, I'll always remember this day.
Joining us now is someone else who's very much involved in literacy programs, our home grocer, Curtis Akins. And I know you and Mrs. Bush have met.
Yes, we have.
I'm a fan.
Well, no. I'm a fan,
I'm a
along
fan.
with millions of Americans out there who have reading problems. And on behalf of all the groups that I work with, Ms. Bush, myself and my family, thank you for what you're doing.
Shirley Gibson sent the tape, didn't he? From Good Morning
Yeah,
America,
he is.
Mrs. Bush.
Curtis, don't be emotional. Let's do this segment so people out there can get to
You
read.
know, that's nice, but it takes guts and strength, and you're saying to people out there, you can do it. Take the course.
But Ms. Bush,
Get in that door.
7 years ago for me, and it was
What was the first step?
the first step was being able to pick up the telephone and call. And again, I want to thank ABC for their involvement in the learning program. And also, like you said in that first segment, one of the things that you've been able to do in the White House is bring a brighter light to the problem. So, Ms. Bush, thank you for all of us who have reading problems. And those of you who may not have gotten the help, the Bush Foundation as well as ABC's Plus is a wonderful place to
We know
start.
for sure that
I'm
little-
holding Gary's
That's all
hand
right.
for
I
security.
want you to hold mine.
Well, we know,
Let's do it
for
here.
sure that little Curtis is not going to
Hey, he's going to be
have any
reading.
problem. But that's the big problem, isn't it? We tend to pass it on from one generation
Absolutely.
to another. How do we
but
break
the
the cycle?
exciting thing, I think, this particular program, the Denver Project, but I think we've given it 22 or 3 now, hoping
Right.
they will be copied.
Like seed program.
But the exciting thing is they're saying, we'll take your child in Even Start or Head Start or a program where they're learning, getting ready to learn, and you must get your GED or job training. We're now working together, so it's not just literacy, it's not just the child, it's job training, it's help getting off welfare,
Right.
it's the big picture.
And it starts with the young, and it's so easy. You've got some of Barbara's tips in there. It's so simple. You think, why didn't I think of that? You know, read to your children aloud. Make them see you reading. Give them examples to set. Lots of tips here. This, of course, will be available to you through our home hotline and newsletter.
My pleasure,
big day
Gary.
for all of us.
Oh, it's a
I'll
great
pinch you
day.
if you pinch
Ms.
me,
Bush,
okay?
I will pinch you tomorrow when we get back to California. But Ms. Bush, again, thank you. And I
How
can tell
can
you
you
from
say
millions
that?
of Americans, we love you for it.
You want something.
Well, they're rushing. I'll tell you, for more information about the Barbara Bush Foundation, just call the home hotline at 1-900-740-4400. Don't forget, it's a 60-cent a minute call. And we'll be back as Mrs. Bush is going to answer some of the questions for our audience here in the East Room.
He claims he hurt his back.
That I wish you could.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that.
All
We'll have
right.
to have a big picnic, I think. We get 1.2 million tourists a year in this house. And we feed something like 70,000 people a year. I mean, we are a very busy household. I take no credit for it, I might add. These lovely people do it.
Well, it's a beautiful house, too. Thank you so much. And we're going to take a break now. We're going to have more questions from our audience after this.
It's not catching if you behave yourself, but they're people. And we've got to be supportive to their families, and we've got to be supportive to them. And we try very hard to do that. And I have not had a family member with HIV, but I've sure got a lot of very close friends who do or who have.
Thank you, Mrs. Bush. Yes, your name.
Good morning, Mrs. Bush. I'm Aunt Getsy from Oregon. And I've noticed that you're very at ease in your role as First Lady. And I wonder to what or to whom you attribute your great unflappable self-confidence.
Well, I'm happy. I think that makes a difference. And I had a mother and father who felt they could give you only 3 things in life, and they managed to give all 3 to me. I really am grateful for this. They made me feel, they set a good example. They gave me the best education that I obviously was open to. I confess I left school to marry George Bush, but they did their part. And then they gave me all the love in the world. And I think if you're surrounded by love, I adore my husband. I feel I'm embarrassed to tell you how lucky I think I am, but I had great parents, great brothers and sisters, wonderful husband, and great children and grandchildren. It's pretty hard to beat.
But Mrs. Bush, it wasn't always that way for you. You've been through some bumpy times. And I read somewhere that there was a time when you were going through the empty nest syndrome. And
well, everybody does
you found yourself kind of down in the dumps for a period of time.
But
how did you pull yourself out?
George Bush put his arms around me. I mean, that makes a difference in life. You know, when George and I had a child die, which is very tough, I mean, very tough, he didn't let me sink back into feeling sorry for myself. That's a big difference. I mean, it's true. It's a wonderful thing to have someone who puts their arms around you.
We have
handled that so bravely, too.
Thank you, Mrs. Butch. We have someone from Vernon Dana Beach, Florida. Your name, please.
Fran Lorman.
All right, Fran, your question?
Mrs. Bush, I'm sure you approached your time as First Lady with certain expectations. What has been the biggest surprise?
Well, the biggest surprise, it was what an opportunity you had. I mean, it shocked me when I walked down the street the second week George was president. I was going to take the dog for a walk and discovered, my gosh, I was surrounded by people. They cared. I'd been there forever. Nobody ever noticed me before. And all of a sudden, my every word became news, which is an awful shock to you because I say some terrible things. But once I quickly learned that you can't go shopping. I hate shopping anyway, so what difference that makes? But that surprised me, enormous surprise that you cared what I said or thought. You shouldn't. I'm not president.
But you're still an example. You're still an example for so many women across, all women, all mothers, all wives.
I'm glad I didn't know that before.
Well, you've been a wonderful example, and thank you so much. Thank you, audience, for those wonderful questions, too. Next, something that took Mrs. Bush 9 years to make, and it's going to last forever. Once again, we're live from the White House, and it's hard to imagine First Lady Barbara Bush having spare time for much of anything, not to mention a hobby, but she does, and needlepoint is one of your favorites.
Why don't you get started on that?
Well, George got into politics, and I wasn't used to sitting, so I took up needlepoint.
Well, and you needlepointed something that is going to last forever. It took you 9 years. This is a...
That's right, a rug. It is beautiful. It's upstairs.
I think we've got an iris of it. Take a look at it.
Let's see that.
Maybe
9
not.
years.
There it is.
There it is.
Wow.
In fact, that's our family room there, you see.
Well, last Christmas, you showed off your needlepoint skills, and there was
a
bit of a recording going on while you were doing it, so why don't we take a look at it and share
All right, that's nice. Let's see, there it is.
There we go.
There they go.
Look at that.
1,200 ornaments made by 600 people. I made those.
Yes.
And they're all needlepoint?
All needlepoint. Now that's imitating me. Here she is. Isn't that outrageous?
That is adorable.
Outrageous.
And of course, it's an angel.
Right.
Well, and also, you know, if you'd like one of the White House angels for your tree this year, Mrs. Bush has kindly given the pattern to the home show, and all you have to do to get it is to send a self-addressed stamped envelope to the home show ornament, P.O. Box 92848, Rochester, New York, 14692.
Now, we've got some examples here on the table. These you made as well.
I didn't make
you didn't
any
make
of these. These were made by some of those
these were made by
600
some of the 600,
volunteers,
yeah.
many from my church in Houston, Texas. But they are spectacular. We
They
expected a
certainly are.
little
There's the angel.
homemade something, and instead
These
we
are
got
works
these
of art.
beautiful pieces.
This one is just adorable.
Isn't that hysterical? And then we
Look at
had
the
a
house.
village with some 70 houses that were wonderful. I mean, they did a great job. This is from the creche that our church gave me, and I'm sorry you can't see the detail, but it's so extraordinary. And that's what got us going.
This is it? This is the first one?
Well, we would like to leave you with a memory of home visiting your home.
All
and
right.
This is from Carol Duvall, our craft wizard.
Oh.
Carol did not make it, but she received it from Susan Portra.
Look how
One of our viewers.
beautiful.
Isn't that
Spent a
great?
very long
Look at
time
this.
making this.
Turn it around.
Oh,
Gosh.
Look at that.
Where were you
Susan?
last year?
You can
Well,
visit
better
next
late
year.
than never.
Adorable. I
Isn't that
cannot
great?
believe
That's
it.
the designer.
That's a
Susan Portra.
masterpiece.
And thank you,
Thank you.
Susan, for giving that for us to get making for us.
We'll be back. Mrs. Bush is going to share with us. You know, she must receive tons of stuff, and some things catch your fancy, as did
I
this.
love this, yes.
Yeah, that's a...
Really, this is what she's working on now. It's been a year in progress. That's how long all this takes.
And that came from
That's
Millie's book,
beautiful.
of course. And I understand the Kennebunkport place is all back together?
It's looking
After the
wonderful.
storm?
Yeah, we're keeping our fingers
No
crossed.
more storms, huh?
You know what an optimist is, don't you?
No.
Barbara Bush.
Good.
Oh.
Well, we've got our fingers crossed for you in November, Barbara.
And hang in there for the rest of the campaign.
Oh, and I'm going to take this
Okay.
beautiful thing. Thanks for the
Thank you, and thanks to your staff who made our visit so wonderful.